that long-term romance to draw from as well. And I just never really thought about writing anything else. I wanted to write the book that you would read on vacation when you were stranded on an island. And that's what I wanted to write, because that's what I wanted to read. Did you say roll a leg around? I might have. I'm into that. I don't know what it means, but I'm gonna figure it out. I did. I don't know, I was always the funny kid. I was always cracking jokes when I was younger, so I think it just, like, comedy lends itself well to me, but I think some of my, like, past trauma experiences make me really in touch with the feels, too, so I really love to tell a story where I can make you, like choke up in one scene and then you're laughing the next. It's, like, so healing to feel an emotion and then that satisfying laugh at the end when you're just like, oh, God, I felt all that range of emotion. So I just think without a little bit of comedy and everything. I think there's that part where when you're laughing so hard and then something switches and like the real emotion starts coming out, that's like the best thing ever. They say that Steel Magnolia's laughter through tears is not favorite emotion. That's like the best line ever, but it's really true. And if you're reading something that's really funny and then something just sneaks in and kind of catches you, oh, it's the best. That's my favorite.
No, and that's one thing I love about books is, and especially romance books, there's like this there's multiple facets to it. I feel like a lot of the time people think romance is so cheesy, there's just like one facet to it. But when you get to these different authors, different stories, whether that's dark, rom-coms, I can't think of it, paranormal, omniverse, whatever I can think of. I think there's different facets to romance books that every person can connect to in certain ways, even if it's the most like outlandish scenario of how they meet. You're like, you know what? And it brings like a little bit of warmth, and it feels like a warm hug, and you get to escape the world. And I think it's just such a beautiful thing. And like these where people get to meet the authors that brought characters to life. And talking about characters that brought to life, how is it for you guys to see what you wrote in your little office, spend so many hours like not showering, not eating, not doing anything else but writing, to see them brought to life to the screen?
It's wild. It's wild. Especially like with my casting of Andrew Biernacht, who's on a million romance covers. So he is the book boyfriend. And he's called the book boyfriend in the book. So it was just this weird, like, worlds colliding moment where it's like I brought a book cover to fucking life. Like, how did I do that? You know, how did I get here? Like, it was surreal being on set and like they were already filming and I was just whisked in and there were lights on them and I was like, oh my God. So yeah, it's trippy and it's not something a lot of authors get. A lot of authors dream about it, but like to have a company like PassionCon who's actually making the movies. They're not just optioning and like holding on. There's so many author friends that have movie deals that just sit. And like PassionCon gets it done and they do it well. And so yeah, that was sick.
Yeah, it's a little surreal, it's a little strange, but in the very best of ways. You know, Wallbanger had bounced around Hollywood for a long time, and it was optioned many times and never was made. And like it was at some really high-profile places for a long time, and it just was not finding the right people. And you know, Tosca and I had talked many times, and I finally was like, you know what? I want to see these words on screen. I want to hear somebody say these words. And I knew that this would be the place to do it because I knew they were going to honor the book. And not to just totally talk about Twilight, but I remember one time reading Stephanie Myers said that the first time Twilight was optioned, she read the screenplay and they had them on jet skis. And she was like, the vampires are on jet skis. And she was like, oh God. And thank God that one fell out of development and it was landed with the right people. And so I was like, just don't put them on jet skis. Like somebody would have taken these people and put them on, you know, figurative jet skis. And I knew that Tosca was not going to do that. I knew but it's also the blessing and the curse of when you stay so true to the book. Sometimes things shouldn't be said out loud. Sometimes it reads really well, but then when you say it, you're like, oh shit, that's clunky. That's not great. And so hearing it out loud, I knew she was going to do the best representation of it and honor the text, but also take it where it needed to be. What's that? Did I hear anything? I'm hallucinating.
I remember where I actually took out something in the screenplay because I was like, nope, I don't think that should be said out loud. And it was when Miles sniffs Kate's panties. I was like, look, I'm gonna watch this movie with my mother, the guys from Tires. Like, I cannot sit through that. I mean, he still has a panty moment, but like, let's just cut the sniff, okay? It's not in the book. I don't know if it needs to be on the screen. And I think they could have pulled it off, you know? And it was funny because I remember talking to Andrew about that, and I was like, don't worry, I cut that. That was on the early version. And he's like, oh, I think I could have pulled it off. Which is like so typical Andrew. He would do anything and he commits himself, so that was really funny. But
That's in the bonus content. The deleted scene.
on the director's floor.
Way on the floor.
Oh, I love that so much. If anyone has any questions, you can come line up at the microphone. I'll ask one while people do come up if you do. I know we're seeing Wallbanger tonight, and I'm like so excited, you have no idea. But if you could pick like your favorite scene that you got to either watch be filmed or you got to see, like from your book that made it into the movie without spoiling too much for us tonight, of course, what would that be?
So I didn't go to the set. They wanted me to. They were like, why aren't you going? I'm like, I wanted to, and there were a couple times where I almost did, and then I realized that I didn't want that pressure of, oh God, the author's here. Even though I knew they were going to be so kind and so welcoming. But when the author's there, there's a different energy. And so I was just like, if we do any more in the future, I will for sure go. But this one, I realized it wasn't mine anymore, and it was theirs, and they needed to walk and talk and breathe and put their spin on it and own it. And so, you know, I gave them as many notes as I could, but I was like, this is yours now, and you go play and you do what you need to do. Having said that, I saw a lot of pictures, and I saw a lot of video from the set, and I was absolutely tickled. But the baking of the apple pie scene and the peeling of the apples is pretty great.
Okay. I love so many. I was like, I could say this one, I could say this one, I could say this one, but probably one of my favorite from Wait With Me is when Miles is stacking the tires and he dumps the water on his head. Oh, yeah. But it's not necessarily just, that's not the only reason I love that scene. I love it because Kate, as the writer, is watching the scene, and there was a part in the book where it was just inner narrative where she was like, men aren't created in gyms, they're made in garages where they have to use special soap, and she's just having a whole inner monologue. And it's a narrative in the book, so you know, you usually wouldn't see it in the movie, but we figured out how to like turn it into like a voice note. She's an author and she's inspired, and so she's taking a voice memo. And so I just loved that moment of like seeing an author's brain like on screen on display while the book boyfriend's drenching himself with water, dirty. It was a miserable experience, obviously.
It sounds terrible. It's just terrible.
Hi, this is Alice, and I just want to let you know I'm also a fan fiction writer because I started with Twilight and 50 Shades and all that. And one of my first books was Edward Wallbanger that I read. I was inspired by it, so thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. We had a good time, didn't we?
We did. I just wanted to know how difficult was it for you to transfer the book from Edward Cullen to Simon, or from Bella to Carly?
You know, it's funny, you know, for people who don't read fan fiction, which I had never read fan fiction until a while ago. I don't know, I said it like that. Something happened. There was, you know, you could write them as the actual people, and then you could write them as humans, that maybe Edward worked in a bank, and Bella delivered pizza, and they really had nothing to do with the original characters. They kind of became your own, and so it was a really simple transition. So Benjamin and Jillian were Carlisle and Esme. And you know, everybody, that's why there's such a nice big rounded out ensemble cast in that, because it was a cast of one. So it was a really simple transition, and they were so much fun that I was like, this has to be a book.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
build on the panties. I don't know, I just kind of go for it, you know? I think I've gotten more brave with more books that I've written, you know? I would have to reread my earlier stuff to even see what I did back then. I don't even remember now, and I don't even want to reread it, it's painful. But I don't know, I guess I don't really think about it. I write for the readers, you know, and I know that the screenplay can be adapted for the viewers. Like, you know, some things, like you said, don't translate or don't belong in a movie. Like, you can't, it's so much better in a book than it would be on screen. So I think it's, but I think, yeah, I guess, I don't know if I answered your question. I lost my.
And my other question is, when you like to start a book, do you draw inspiration from celebrities you see, or is it just a character you completely seen in your head, I guess?
I usually cast in my head. I would say this, I've always kind of seen everything in CinemaScope. So I write books as though they're going to all be movies. I don't know why. I think it's just, I'm a very visual person, and I think because I started writing late, I didn't have the writing chops to back it up, but I'm a huge TV and movie watcher, and I came from an acting background, and so that was always how I saw things. So like, when I write dialogue, it's quick, because we, contrary to what I'm doing right now, normally we don't speak in these long monologues, and so my dialogue tends to be very back and forth, and I always wrote it as though I could see it on a screen. And so I do tend to cast who they would be as I'm kind of figuring out who they are. And so there's vision boards in my office, and when I did the Hudson Valley series, I knew exactly who Archie, Leo, and Oscar were going to be in these dream movies one day. So, yeah. But then it actually came true, so manifest works, yeah.
I don't necessarily cast actors or anything. I'll have a Pinterest board and I'll kind of start pinning like the look and the vibe I think they're gonna have. But no, I don't have a specific person or face in mind always.
You two are all like apparently like inspiring authors. So for the rest of us that are trying to track this all the world and are indie authors, what is some like amazing advice you guys have to like track down to this world and get more notice in those pathways?
I have no idea. Because I'm trying to launch again. So honestly, I was picking everybody's brain last night at our after table at the dinner because I've been gone, and in 7 years the game has totally changed. And so what I used to think I knew, I don't know anymore. I feel like I can still write the kind of book that people want to read, but in terms of what to do, no clue. Don't know that that helps.
Write that down.
Great advice. Alice says no fucking clue. What I can tell you, and this is what I said from the very beginning, is that nobody can write your story better than you can. So I backed into this. I had no idea what I was doing, and I broke every rule that there was. Like, I just said this last night, the fact that in Wallbanger, in the romance world, your main character is not supposed to be stooping 3 other people before he gets with the main gal, right? I mean, no, that doesn't happen, but it worked. But had I known that, I would have gotten in my head and never done something like that. So break the rules, do what you want to do, write the book that you want to write, and trust that your voice is your voice and it's unique.
I always, first of all, tell people to just finish the damn book. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people are writing and never finish the